Currently, we are constructing the Pokwasi substation, the Kaswa substation. These two substations are being funded under the Millennium Challenge Compact Tube projects. So MIDA is managing that funding for us. So you have Pokwasi and Kaswa. And then we have projects that are being funded by AFD, Agence Française de Développement. And they are financing major transmission line projects from Tema to Accra and to Malam. We believe that by June, July, when all these projects are being completed, Ghanaians will now enjoy reliable power. But in order for them to be completed, the contractors on these projects have requested for outages. These outages are going to affect only Accra, I repeat, only Accra and Winneba. It is not nationwide. Pokwasi, the 330 came from Abuazi. We are diverting it to Pokwasi. And in order for you to divert it, you have to disconnect the 330 kV network. Otherwise, somebody will burn to death. So that is why it's going to happen. So in Kaswa, we are going to connect the existing lines from Cape Coast and Winneba, connect it to the Kaswa substation and continue to Accra. In order to do that, you have to take those lines off, and it will affect supply. So that is why we'll be coming to Accraians and Winnebaans and say that these are the outages that are going to happen. It will affect you for a duration, and because by the time we will come out, we will know exactly the amounts and the duration. We would want to inform those who will be affected how it will be done so that they can plan their lives.
You're welcome back. And you have been listening to the GridCo talk about the power situation. Mark Ewaba is head systems operations at GridCo. And we are also being joined by Enusa Fuseni, lawyer and member National Democratic Congress, former MP and former minister. Thank you for joining us, Honorable Enusa Fuseni.
And how are you?
I'm very good, thanks for asking. Now, from where you sit, what has been your observation about the situation so far, and what do you make of the explanations that we are getting from the state, so to speak, as in the operators and the minister? You know, they did a joint conference and a press release.
Samson, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this program. Samson, no one will deny the fact that we have been experiencing intermittent power outages for some time now. And all these times that we have been experiencing those intermittent power outages, no one has attributed the outages to the development activities that are being carried out by GridCo. No one has ever said that. We have also known that the independent power producers have always indicated that government owes them so much, and that might threaten their ability and capacity to continue to deliver power to the state. Now, power outages would come by two ways. If there's a supply side constraint, that is, those who produce the power are not able to supply enough power for the country, then GridCo will transmit the power to the power distributors, and they would then distribute as and when the power is available. I mean, they will have to manage the supply side constraint. The other side constraint is a demand-side constraint, where we have demand growing and then we don't have enough plants to produce the power. There you have to ration. It's just like water flowing through your tap. You have to ration the power to make sure that everybody gets a bit of that power that is not available. Now, I find it quite strange for GridCo to be saying that because they are doing development activities in Bokwasi and Winneba, those development activities will interrupt or affect or interfere with their ability to continue to deliver service to the people of this country. Because you see, when you are doing development activities, you are erecting new substations. Those new substations will only come on stream when they are fully completed. And then the existing lines are then transferred onto the new substation. That is when you can reasonably understand that because of the transfer of the power from the existing power stations or substations to the new substations, there will be interruption. And this normally might take 1 day, 1 week, or some number of days. Now, to say that because you are building a 33 kV line from Abuasi to Accra, and you are going to divert the line, so you are going to disconnect, it's a bit problematic for me. I mean, having worked at the Ministry of Energy for some time, it's quite problematic. Now, but GridCo's difficulties, and they ought to be forthcoming with the people of this country. When I worked at the Ministry of Energy as Deputy Minister in charge of power, GridCo was a very profitable establishment. That led the Agence Française de Développement to grant or to give GridCo a lot of facilities to be able to upgrade the network. And you've also heard that the Millennium Challenge account is supporting GridCo to build their substations. Now, the Millennium Challenge account came in because they appreciated the power constraints that we had. At that time, indeed, the constraints that we had in this country were generation constraints and distribution constraints. They were not transmission constraints. But of course, to ensure that the system becomes and remains robust, they needed to put in some infrastructure to ensure that the transmission network was robust enough to carry the power from the producers to the suppliers. Now, we are being told by the latest financial records available that I have seen that GridCo is heavily indebted. That for some months in the past, they had serious challenges even in paying salaries of workers. That they have defaulted in the payment of even social security. So, and GridCo is being run as a tolling establishment. They carry the power from the generators to the distributors, and they pay tolling fees. So is it that GridCo is unable to transmit the power by reason of the obsolete nature of its equipment, or what is accounting for the depreciation in the financials of GridCo? So, in fact, my initial comments are simply that, look, we are faced with a difficulty. In power generation, just like in any system, you need redundancy. And that was why when President John Evans Atta Mills became the president of this country, he said, look, work to ensure that at any time in this country, we will have about 10% redundancy to stabilize the power sector. Now, somebody must pay for the redundancy. And that was why PURC was mandated to ensure that in calculating the tariffs, they account for the redundancy that was going to be created to stabilize the power. We must also be asking government how it managed the free power that it gave, how much did government or does government owe the power sector as we speak? How much is it? Is the debt compromising the ability of the power sector to continue to deliver services to the people of this country? Apart from the covert free power, we also know that MMDAs or the MDAs, that is the ministries, departments, and energy agencies, owe a lot of money to the power producers. And these MDAs are government institutions. We want to know what government is doing to ensure that they pay up on their debt to these service providers so that they can continue to provide efficient and effective services to the people of this country. This is power. It's just like petroleum or petroleum products. When you produce and sell, you must be paid before you can plow back the money into generating more power for the people. When you produce power, transmit the power, distribute, and there's no payment, then the power sector will definitely be hard hit by the non-payment for the services rendered. We are also told that in, for instance, ECG, that transmission losses alone, transmission losses, which includes commercial losses, that is, supply of power to persons which cannot be accounted for, it's about 23%. It's huge. It's huge. What is ECG doing to ensure that they cut down on transmission losses? Even collection of tariffs for power or services provided to customers is a challenge for ECG. Conservative estimates put it at 180 million a year. And so, if they are selling power and they are unable to collect the money, then how can we, as a people, be guaranteed of reliable supply of power?
All right.
To put it bluntly, the power sector is presently in crisis, and we need to look critically at the power sector to see what we can do to bring it up straight. It's
in crisis because it's broke, is that it?
It's broke. It's broke.
Okay, so hold on for me. And Ben Boakye, Executive Director, Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, has also been with us on Zoom. Thank you very much for joining us, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so very much. So I'd like you to, I know you know a lot more. I want you to hear from the two politicians who have the opportunity of the facts also. Then we will have you speak. Yes, YB.
I don't envy Ben's position as a referee, particularly how you ended, whether the sector was broke. Apparently it's been broke historically for several years.
Okay.
But let me first...
What do you know is what is happening? For many people,
I'm going to
for many people, this is dumsor that we are running away from.
I think we should speak to that.
Right.
It's very important we speak to that. Let me just say hello to my very good friend, Inusa, and wish him well in retirement. When he voluntarily left Parliament, I thought I would be staying to carry on. Now I have been forced out.
Right.
So, Inusa, I hope you enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Power politics, as in energy, is very emotional in this country. Very, very emotional. I mean, there was a time when it was about petrol. Anytime there was a budget about to be read and petrol was the single indicator. Now it's about electricity. Given the history of the past few years, the era of dumsor, I'm not surprised officials in charge of the current situation feel skittish, because when the lights go off suddenly, even the managing director will feel under pressure from his family and friends. When my daughter asks me, why have they put it off? I am under pressure to answer. The question is why, not that they have put it off, but why have they put it off? So everybody suffers. Everybody suffers when the lights go down. But I want us to appreciate that this is a second generation round of outages. It is not the typical dumsor that we experienced before, which we could ascribe to generation issues. At the time, we were discussing whether it was about capacity to generate or capacity to fuel what was in situ. Happily, that set of problems we would assume we had overcome because we have established some sort of ability to continue generating. So there's a certain appreciation that we have moved beyond generation issues now, whether or not the funds are adequate or not, but there is some sort of inbuilt resilience that we have achieved in the generation area. So now we have come to a second generation one. This generation is different from the other generation. This second generation is a verb for a new situation, which is an addition to the problems we were experiencing before, transmission challenges. So whatever is happening now, from my understanding, factually, is that we have adequate generation and we have increased consumption, and that is putting pressure on our ability to transmit and distribute. So the infrastructure for transmission has come under extreme pressure. Now the difference with a traditional dumsor where one transformer in the neighborhood trips and the neighborhood goes off, and a trip on a GridCo main line is that that's a wholesale line. And that means once it trips, a whole region could go off, even if a particular part of that region wasn't the direct source of the trip. So we had a situation where one day the entire country went off. There are those inherent dangers in there about how the tripping goes on and the impact on the plants and all those things. Those are technical matters because some of the plants, when they go off suddenly, they have a lifeline reduction and all that. But the key thing now is that you could suffer an outage almost innocently because you're on the wholesale line, which is a GridCo. So this is a more critical situation than before. That we need to quickly upgrade transmission in order to stabilize the system. I know for a fact that government's main object is a consistent, affordable availability of power to ensure jobs, incomes, as well as social use. But how do we overcome this period? Happily, there are ongoing efforts, and that is where we hear GridCo giving us all the major investments that are ongoing. Ideally, those investments, as GridCo says, should give us some level of stability and enhanced use in the medium term. Into the long term, other parts of others will come on stream, including gas, which will reduce cost of production and all those things. But immediately, how do we support GridCo to deliver what it has promised us? There is that skepticism about official positions, because at the end of the day, as for me, I want my light. If I don't get my light, it's dumsor. So that patience to accept that this dumsor is a different kind of dumsor is not there. So we must accept that. I think the officials in the sector and the politicians must accept that. This is the kind of situation where if you are in opposition, it's sweet. If you are in government, you are hot. And it could easily be the other way around, because the opponents would then jump on you and say, we told you so. You couldn't control, you said we couldn't control dumsor. Now you are giving us dumsor. And then the incumbent, that's we, are trying to explain, oh, this is a different kind of dumsor. But then the user still believes that I don't have light. You deprive me of light. So the clear difference that this is not going to be sustained. And this, on the scale it happens, obviously cannot continue to happen. That's why I'm saying it's not going to be sustained. It's a different kind of thing where whole swathes of the country go off. And it hasn't been as consistent as often as it was before. Therefore, we need to accept at face value what GridCo is telling us as the official agency who control that process. That one, they are actually in the process of sorting it out. They are installing new equipment, investing new money, and two, within a certain time frame. I'm hearing up to July. It's likely that this will be over. And that when it is over, we'll have a more solid, resilient distribution infrastructure.
But that claim is being questioned, that they are doing some upgrade. The point, what we are hearing rather, is that they are installing, if you like, or building bulk supply points, like Inusa just suggested, and that should have nothing whatsoever to do with what we have been experiencing.
Questioning is fair. Criticism is fair. You still need your light. And anytime you don't have light, you lose something.
Yes.
You lose social.
So we are seeking the truth.
Yes. So the truth is that, like I said, given our history of dumsor and all that, public officials will be a bit skittish about whatever is happening and may shy away from engaging the public, which is the wrong approach. So I am happy that GridCo is finally coming out on a public platform, engaging all of us and telling us that this is what we are doing. As to the technical feasibility, whether one can run systems and then establish new patching systems in there whilst this continues, technical capacity, I'll fall on the side of GridCo. I can't fall on the side of my honorable colleague Inusa. Even though he's worked in the energy ministry, I can't take his word for it that you can run it without, because for all you know, there are genuine system failures. Because these projects have been going on since 2018. We've also heard that there were issues from 2018 about timing for renewal of certain equipment. But that, it was not renewed at that time because there were issues with the cash flow. So GridCo had to sit back and deal with sovereign guarantees for government. And
have you read about their financial situation, what the Auditor General has to say about them?
Yes, I have. But I want us to separate the two. I want us to look at their administrative issues and operational issues in situ now as distinct from the new investment and the ongoing improvements they are promising to the installed grid. Because they are two distinct things.
Yes,
if you are going to borrow money...
They may be, but does that not give you an idea of what is happening to them?
Yeah, but exactly what is happening to them. That's what I'm saying. That, as Inusa said, there was a time when they attracted good money to invest. And I've hinted that on or about 2018, they themselves were talking about engaging their financiers further. So that slowed down the cash flow. So now, at that time, things that they could have done to keep themselves better afloat, they have delayed. And now, in doing those things at this stage, 2020, 2021, they have a lag, which is impacting on their ability clearly. Now, in that lag, they also seem to have suffered some administrative financial lapses. You understand? But it is an ongoing institution. It is still running, and therefore it can turn itself around. The power sector.
We'll be showing the breakdown as from the budget regarding the debts,
yes.
Particularly how they are indebted to various, partners in the project. For example, the Enclave Power Company Limited, in excess of 3 million. You have the Prestia Sankofa Company, the Grid Consolidated Diamonds, a number of places they seem to have.
They are not indebted to Grid Consolidated. Grid Consolidated is indebted to them all.
Okay, so as we begin to project what the picture looks like as far as GridCo's debt situation is, as you can see on your screens, if you are watching us by TV, let me ask Ben. So Ben, what exactly is your understanding of what is going on? First, is there ongoing upgrading as claimed in Pokwase and Kaswa? Is it rather that it's a building of bulk supply points, as Inusa suggests, and that should have no impact in the power supply situation?
Thanks, Samson. I appreciate that those developments are happening. The Pokwase development is happening. The Kaswa is also happening, and the Agile Transfer Development investment on the replacement of the some of the lines to 161 kilovolts is also happening. But the problem we have at hand now has to do with the existing infrastructure, and that has to be clarified. And I think GridCo chose their words quite carefully when they were engaging the media, not to tell the public that directly what they are doing is what is causing the problems that we are seeing currently. What we are faced with is the failing of the existing infrastructure. And we shouldn't confuse that with the development that is happening. We can appreciate that once the Pokwase development is completed, it will take a lot of the load and we'll be able to stabilize power for many parts of Accra. The same with the Kaswa project as well. But we are not there yet. We've not even gotten to the point where they interface with the existing infrastructure. All right. So it is the existing infrastructure that is failing, and we have to speak to it. Why is the existing infrastructure not able to deliver power? Essentially what is happening is that you have demand outstripping the capacity of the transmission infrastructure to wheel the power required to our homes and our businesses. And therefore, when the load is too high, either systems will trip or GridCo will have to knock off some areas to save the system from tripping. And we have been here because of problems that we do know and we've been talking about for almost a decade now, which is, a triple barrel, if you like, a problem that has to do with the technical capacity of the infrastructure to actually deliver power efficiently, the financial situation of the power sector, and managerial problems that the power sector has faced. Technical because you have aging infrastructure that you need to replace and also upgrade because you have demand growing. And we have been failing to anticipate rightly and invest the right amount of technical solutions that would deliver power efficiently. Financial, because of course it takes money to buy the equipment and be able to invest. And we have failed to optimize the sector for the sector to pay for itself. Because the value chain, the generation, transmission, distribution, really depends on how much money is raised from the benefit when power has been consumed. But we've not been able to optimize the distribution end to be able to raise enough money to finance the value chain. And therefore, intermittently, we're asking government to come in. And if you check the key projects that GridCo mentioned, these are donor projects. These are handouts, if you like. So the question is, without these handouts, how would the system be faring 2-3 years down the line? All right, we are not investing, and the power sector is unable to generate the right resources to be able to fund its operations. It's also managerial because there are certain decisions that can be taken by management of these institutions, whether it is ECG, GridCo, or VRA, that are owned by the state. And there is ample evidence, even in government-owned documents, an assessment that was done way back in 2014, for which we thought we had to inject private investment into ECG. And these three things were identified. Because if you look at the commercial losses that happen at the level of ECG, where power theft is rampant and consistently been going up, in the past year, it's appreciated about 2 percentage points. All right, so people are stealing power, and in most cases, they are being aided by ECG's own staff to do the illegal connection. ECG management cannot pretend not to know that this is happening. There are instances where you have a business consume so much electricity, and for them to go and pay for the electricity, you have ECG staff destroy the meter so that a new meter is brought there, and you can't even read what has been consumed. over the period. These are managerial problems that has to be addressed. Otherwise, you inject as much money as possible and you will not solve the problem. GridCo also has its own managerial problems. In government's own report, the supply plan for 2020, it is stated that the capacitor banks, which is they are critical equipment to ensure that we can stabilize the grid and provide a smooth supply of electricity as demand grows within a day. These capacitor banks are almost 40, right? We have about 944 megawatts of capacity banks installed across the country. And the assessments show that only 28% was functional in 2020. And, you know, it further states that if we were to bring on 70%, we will save about 35 megawatts of power. If we did 90%, we will save about 38 megawatts of electricity. But what is even interesting is that these are not expensive equipment if you look at the numbers in the power sector. So these are equipment that GridCo can prioritize from its own limited resources to be able to fix them. So you are not investing in equipment that will cost you just about $10 million to fix, even if you were to replace all of them. And guess what? We are wasting about $2.5 million every month for not fixing those equipment. That is not something that government has to come and provide money for. These are managerial issues that can be addressed from whatever resources they get from the system. So
did you say $2.5 million every month wasted?
$2.5 million wasted for 38 megawatts of power that is not consumed, but wasted on the grid line because of a $10 million equipment that we have to fix. You understand?
People don't understand why we have heard over the period that we have excess capacity, and yet we are sleeping in darkness, and businesses are not able to operate during the day, some of the days, because of the current situation.
And even the scale of the problem is not appreciated if you just look at those dynamics. Even today, there are many areas where you have the light on, but it's not usable. All right, because of the low voltage that is being supplied to those areas. Ordinarily, Ghana, you should give us 220 volts. But in some areas, they are doing 190, 180 volts. And that voltage cannot be used by many equipments. Many intelligent systems will not allow a machine to operate at that voltage. So you have the light in the area, but businesses cannot use it. You have to either invest into your own transformer to be able to stabilize or bump up the load to 220 before you can use your system. So if you don't have the money, you just have to switch on to your generator to be able to produce or function as a business.
You said, yeah.
We complain about excess capacity that we need to action and ensure that we demand and use that electricity. But we have low voltage that cannot be used by businesses. So how do you wipe the excess capacity that you do have when the systems that are supposed to transmit the power optimally?
It's interesting.
To use.
It's interesting. I'll get you to interpret the figures as we have got from the budget to us about this issue of outstanding trade debtors. And the breakdown brings us to a total of 234 million plus. But you said this is a matter of the existing infrastructure failing. So did they deceive or mislead us as to what the cause of this problem is?
No, I think, like I said, what I heard them say, they were careful, but if you don't understand the sector, you may be, confused to think that they were saying that it is really those infrastructure that is causing the problem. It's a separate development. The existing infrastructure is failing. In fact, when the Pokwase substation is completed, it wouldn't take a week to connect, to the grid. So you don't really need this kind of discussion to be able to loop onto the existing infrastructure, which is a 33 kVA Abuaze Tema line that they want to connect to. It's the same with the Kaswa project. New pylons are being developed. What that means is that you are constructing new lines. And then when you are done, you replace the old ones. So at what point do you blame those developments on the existing infrastructure? They are not connected.
Right.
All right. So we need to address why the existing infrastructure is failing, because even when you have finished the construction of the Pokwase and Kaswa project, there are many other investment requirements across the country that we need to pay attention to. Last week, there was load shedding in Brekum because, the transformer, GridCo's transformer, blew, and they had to put a smaller transformer on there. So they had to shed load in that part of the country. There are many parts of the country that are experiencing trips, just because the systems are failing. So we need money, not just for Accra, but to invest in other parts of the country that are experiencing similar challenges. And that's why I was shocked, to hear the GridCo boss say that they don't have challenges financially to address their maintenance problems. I mean, we wouldn't be here if they had money to maintain their systems and upgrade them over the period. The problem is that there hasn't been enough money to be able to upgrade the systems, and therefore we're hoping that.
We just lost him. Hello, Ben. Okay, Ben's line is frozen. Ben, if you can hear me, I'd like you to quickly bring us into how the matters that we had to deal with PDS may come into the present situation, as in the failure in the management of the PDS situation. And then I needed you to interpret the figures that we have displayed on the screen. Are you on, Ben? Okay. We seem to have lost Ben there. We will make contact with Ben and then get him to. Now, Honorable Nusaf Hussaini, having listened to Ben, what else catches your attention about this situation?
You see, the problem, indeed, Ben has given us a bird's eye view of the problems that are confronting the energy sector, and particularly the power distribution sector. It is important for all of us to understand that if there is historical underdevelopment, underinvestment in the power sector, you will experience situations like this. I mean, you can't run away from it, and you can't use new development, like upgrading your system or building bulk supply points, to justify why you have power outages. You can't.
Okay, please hold on. Please hold on for me. Let me finish with Ben. Hi, Ben. You are back.
Yes, sorry about the trip.
Yes, you were concluding on that last point, but we lost you when you were just about concluding on that point.
Yes, so I think I was explaining that, I mean, there is a challenge with existing infrastructure, and that has to do with the underinvestment over the years. We had to fix that, because otherwise you finish a problem with Pokwase and Kaswa, and then you have to go to address other challenges. And also critically, at the distribution end are bigger challenges, but because GridCo is up now, we are not even focusing on that side. Low voltage across the country is becoming a normal situation, which we have to address to allow people to use the power that is on the lines, because not many businesses can buy their own transformers to be able to boost the power to make it usable.
I was asking, where does the mismanagement of the PDS situation come in here?
No, I think it was a very unfortunate situation because we identified a problem in 2014 and decided that a minimum $500 million investment was required to be able to upgrade the systems of ECG for them to address some of the challenges that they have. And we ended up with a structure that could not guarantee that investment. All right, so we had to recoil from that. And we were promised that within 3 months, we were coming out with an alternative to attract investment into the distribution of electricity. That hasn't happened 2 years down the line. So if we are to fix the value chain and stop the debt accumulation, we need to fix the distribution end where revenue is generated to be able to pay the value chain, and also ensure that management across the value chain can be fixed, and issues of procurement, issues of poor decisions, and paying attention to petty investment that could be addressed.
Are you saying
from the limited resources?
Are you saying that? Are you saying we haven't? Are you saying we haven't lost the investment that would have gone into the PDS management?
The investment didn't come in the first instance.
Is it lost or it is not lost? That's the question.
We lost the opportunity to invite the private sector into the space around that time. But the challenge was that the assurance of the required investment was not there from the transaction we had with PDS. They couldn't raise even guarantees to assure us that they were going to invest $500 million minimum in the distribution of electricity, and therefore it was not tenable to continue that direction. But of course, you can trace back to the same politics and interference in the structure that would have led to choosing a company that would have invested into the distribution of electricity.
All right, so finally, I wanted you to try and give us some interpretation to the chart that we are putting on again right now as regards what we have come to learn, including GridCo's inability, as it were, to take care of its SNIT situation, and what that might, if that may be any reflection of the financial situation it faces.
Yes, so these are numbers that reflect some of the major companies that owe GridCo, and if they were able to raise this money, they could have invested. But this is data from 2017. I would assume that in 2021, the numbers may be significantly different. This is the Auditor General's numbers from audit for 2017. So the debt situation has been worsening. Indebtedness to GridCo has been worsening over the years, and it requires that we pay attention to deal with these ones. Some of them are not very significant. I mean, if you talk about 684,000 by Akosomo Testa, that could be a month's bill or 2 months' bill. But it again highlights that we have to improve on the liquidity of the distribution and transmission of electricity to ensure that they can recover.
How do we come to this situation where they are owed and they can't get the money and therefore they are in trouble, as the report suggests?
Because most of them are government entities, and when you have a problem with a government entity, you call a minister and the minister intervenes. Let them continue to use it, we will pay you, and it never gets paid. So those are the challenges, because they are not functioning as a business that looks at this bottom line and say, you pay or you get disconnected. All right, there's always interference to keep them consuming power.
Right.
And if you check the financials of VACO has been making losses year on year, and we keep throwing money at it. And they're also weakening the capacity of other institutions. They buy power from VRA, they don't pay. Yeah. They get transmission from GridCo, they don't pay.
Right.
And so they continue to weaken the whole system.
So now we are supposed to pay for all of this. And as you suggest, it simply comes down to mismanagement, lack of investment that is required, and doing it at the right time, wasting opportunities that present themselves, like the PDS, and the government wants us to applaud it that it was able to stop that process. We are going to pay for it. You say there's no two ways about it. We will definitely be paying high increases in electricity. Why so?
Yes, but before that, let me clarify that. I mean, we supported the cancellation of the PDS transaction because it didn't show the path for investing in the distribution of electricity. But the failing can also be attributed to government, because they didn't allow a more transparent process in selecting PDFs to allow a company with a financial muscle to actually deliver them. But on the tariff issue, we have to pay more for electricity. For the inefficiencies, we have to pay for it, and also the true cost of generating electricity. If government doesn't want that to happen, then it has to show where it's going to raise the money to be able to bridge the difference and to allow the sector to be functional and optimal. We have to also fix issues of management and governance in general. The problem you have with the system is that you have ministers, politicians turn into procurement officers intervening in these agencies. And therefore, if you go to take procurement and contracts for friends and family, you are not able to control what they also do. And I keep telling the politicians, if you allow an agency to allow you to push through one transaction, they will do 100 for themselves. All right? So we have to allow the systems to work and hold them accountable. That is the only way we can fix the inefficiencies and improper poor management in the value chain. And that is how every functioning power sector really works. It's not about whether it is government that owns it or private sector that owns it. But if management cannot have the free will to function and be held accountable, you can't have a functioning system. And that is where we are as a country.
My final question to you is from one of our viewers who says, government should tell us the renegotiation price for gas, which was the reason for the 2017 tariffs. What is the details of the capacity charges? PURC should answer questions why they reduced the tariffs in 2017.
Wow, that's a very interesting question that I might need about 30 minutes, but let me try. We reduced the tariff because government said it had negotiated down gas price from a headline of about 9.8 to about 6.29, I think. And that is what PURC used in computing the tariff. It turned out that that negotiation never even happened. Okay, so that we were underpricing the gas that had gone into the tariff. So that margin has to be taken care of by government. And that is why the debt accumulation on government side keeps increasing. So PURC this time around will have to ensure that we pass through the entire gas price. If government is not going to complete the renegotiation to ensure that the actual price is what PURC is using to determine the tariff. Otherwise, the debt accumulation will continue to occur. Another thing that we are doing is also to bring in an imported gas through LNG, even when clearly we have excess domestic gas. So that also injects about $300 million into the debt situation. That has to be paid for. That has to be factored into the calculation of the tariff if that decision is taken, which we think is so poor and we have to abandon almost immediately. If we don't iron out these inefficiencies, the tariff will have to be adjusted to compensate for all these inefficiencies. And if we are not able to do that, then more debts will sit with the agencies. And that also has implication on how much they can invest to make the sector much more robust, to deliver power to the consumer.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Clearly, Honorable Minister of Sene, I'm taking your very final comments on this matter. Clearly, this is where we are. We simply have no options. We're going to have to pay for more.
Yeah, we're going to have to pay for more. Samson, we are already paying for more. I mean, do you know the cost that you incur when you put on your generator consequent upon power outage? Do you know the cost that you incur when the power goes off and your things that you are stored in your refrigerator go bad? So we're already paying for, except that we're not seeing it. Many people are not seeing that we're already paying for it. Now, I have said when I was at the Ministry of Energy that what appears to be troubling us in Ghana is that there's no price discrimination in the distribution and the sale of power. Now, if people are going to use power for commercial purposes, in other jurisdictions, the residential consumers subsidize commercial consumers. So for commercial consumers to be able to buy power cheaply and then produce create employment, pay taxes, create employment, produce, sell, make profit, and pay corporate taxes. That is the way you grow an economy and make sure that your industries are working. Now, the unit cost power in the production process is already high, and so our commodities are not competitive. Now, if we increase power across board, the same problem is going to dog the manufacturing sector, and the products will become uncompetitive. And so I believe that we need a whole strategic look at our power sector and see what exactly we can do to tweak the way we produce and distribute power to ensure that the balance is in favor of industry, so that the industry can create the employment. Power poverty might be reduced thereby because people will be employed and they will be getting revenue or income which they can use to buy power. And then there will be a individual's responsibility on people to manage the use of their power. But in all things, I think that the government itself must stay off the power sector. If government does not stay off the power sector and continues to use the power sector to play politics, we are going to be in this problem for a long haul.
Thank you, Honorable Nusa Hussaini. Of course, shortly we will be going to deal with the matters happening in the NDC, in Parliament. Yes, yeah. So,
a few remarks.
So this is not what you promised us, you know. This is not what you promised us. You gave us an indication soon upon assuming the reins of government that, you know, you were going to be kind to us. So you renegotiated gas prices and tariff, and then you gave us some comfort, and you trumpeted that over a long period to show that you have been very good at managing this situation. All of a sudden, we seem to be back to a point where we are supposed to pay for what you may have got us to enjoy.
To a large extent, we've been kind to ourselves, all of us, to a large extent, because this is a national situation. It's not a regime-based situation. And I must say that for a very long time, this is the first time I've had a discussion where politicians are involved and yet it's not political.
Right.
That is so important that we don't politicize that sector. Now, one of the biggest things that's happening in energy is the transparency. Anybody can have access to the Energy Sector Recovery Program. And it has everything about the energy sector as at 2017, 18, right through to 19, and projections into 2020. And you can download it on the site of the Energy Commission. All the matters we are discussing here are in there, including the cross-sector debts which need to be subsidized by government. And the fact that at the moment, government is having an audit, the object of which is to finally settle those arrears owed within the sector on the part of the government SOEs. So things are happening. They are transparent. Now, we promised that we will stabilize the sector. We will clear dumsor. Something. Like I said, when we came in, we've managed to tackle that problem head on.
As for dumsor, I keep saying that it is misleading and unacceptable for you to claim that you came to end dumsor. Dumsor ended before you took over.
Dumsor ended?
Yes.
In what way?
Dumsor ended before you took over.
In what way?
I think that should be beyond debate.
That it ended before we took over?
Yes, you didn't. It wasn't
an ongoing
process.
You
didn't end dumsor.
There is that contention. At the moment, there is that contention.
It shouldn't be.
We believe strongly that our interventions stabilized that front and made sure that we didn't have it for a long time.
You can't show what intervention that you did to end dumsor because it had ended.
We stabilized the financial flows. We have taken on the overcapacity. We are paying the take-or-pay bills. We are ensuring that the suppliers receive their funds.
You came to meet excess power. Excess power simply means we didn't have dumsor when you took over. You took over and you were unhappy, and you have gotten all of us to understand that we were saddled with power we don't need.
Something. Excess power, once installed, has to be paid for. That's the meaning of the take or pay. Even when you don't use it. That means if you don't pay for it, you can't have that power, even though it's installed. So there was a financial overhang that we kept saying was the reason why it wasn't regular. Power was irregular. We insisted that there was a financial overhang. We dealt with that financial overhang imaginatively. We managed to get it going again. And on that side, we've taken it in hand. We are renegotiating the take-or-pay agreements. The excess power we are bringing in hand. In other words, it's there. Now we are saying that no more extra capacity. We've put that on hold for some time. The installed capacity, we are renegotiating to bring down the costs. So we are doing that. We are attempting to bring down the overall cost of production. We're also rationalizing the gas. You know, we've shifted car power to the west so that we reduce the load from the east, move it into the west, take gas directly from the west and distribute it so that the grid is more effective. And the gas mix is what reduces the cost of production. Ghana has some of the highest costs, 12 to 15. That's against the others who are doing. The chart is all in the ESRP. So we have worked on the electricity sector. But unfortunately for us, that overhang between 2018 and now, where GridCo should have had consistent investments in its ability to transmit, has caught up with it. Now, I do not accept that the new investments, the new additions to the lines will not impact us. They will definitely impact us. And maintenance is ongoing. That we do the new ones and patch them into the grid does not mean that we will stop maintaining the rest. And we shouldn't confuse distribution with transmission. Because the local level transformers and all that are ECG issues. Those are distribution issues. But in terms of the actual transmission from the generation to ECG distribution, these new projects will definitely impact. And in doing them, the idea is to make the distribution grid, the transmission grid more resilient. So it's important that we accept that there is a problem, but the problem is being worked on and will be solved. Yes, so going forward, I think we need to be very dispassionate about the power sector issues. We need to be very, very dispassionate. Power has two objects. It's a cost of production, which means you have to keep it as low, the cost as low as possible, because it's an input.
Right.
Businesses have to take it in, large or small, and use it to turn around and make a profit in order to create incomes and jobs. That's one key thing. And then it's also a social good. People use it for educational purposes, for entertainment, for domestic, and all those purposes. And that purpose also, in a sense, has to mean that you keep the pricing down. So how do we get to the point as a nation where we have optimal power costing, which is paid for and by whom? Can government continue to subsidize power across board, petroleum and electricity? Can the people, including business and the social sector users, be able to pay the full realizable cost of generating it? How are we going to leverage our fossil resources, gas and fuel offshore, to ensure that we have inputs that will reduce the cost substantially? And in all of this, there are legacy debts to contend with, there are legacy issues to contend with, and of course, there's the future to look at.
So you admit that what you sought to do soon upon assuming office on the basis of your promise in the first term was not sustainable, as the watchers, including Ben Boache and the rest of them, have been saying. It was not sustainable. No, and that's where we are getting to now.
No, I wouldn't accept that. I want us to appreciate that we have a twofold situation now. And that the first set of issues to do with generation, capacity and generation, we've dealt with. I think we have managed to do that. We know the problems and we know how to go about them.
And you are still solving the needless excess power capacity that we're saddled with.
So we are on top of our game where that first part of it is concerned, which is what we promised. But now we have a new situation, which is the transmission. That was not part of the election.
But you agree that competent management should not see us in the present situation?
I think I should speak briefly to that. It's very important.
That's incompetence. That's what it tells.
No, listen. We have had power generation in this country for over 60 years, since the inception of Akosombo. We have some of the finest engineers ever. In fact, we export engineers to other countries. I think it's important that we appreciate merit and that we look at the right way of enabling them to function in order that they are accountable for their actions. It's so critical. We can't just wipe an entire generation, 2, 3, 4 generations of engineers out that they are incompetent. They can't be that incompetent. They've kept the lights on in the face of major challenges, including natural hazards like no water in the dams, transition to the mix of hydro and thermal, and they have simply kept things going.
Okay.
We shouldn't, but yes, we can improve on management.
All right.
But we shouldn't just dismiss them entirely. And then, of course, we've just been talking about the finance. Sometimes we are too hard on ourselves. Sometimes we are too hard on ourselves.
Okay.
Let us realize that we need bulk investment into the energy.
We need to move on.
Very well.
Thank you very much. But if you handed me a job, which I was expected to make profit, and I can't even collect my debt. I don't know what else that is. And I saddle the entire nation into darkness and give them light at the time they do not need a light when they are sleeping. That clearly signals to me some mark of incompetence.
If the inputs are not all entirely in your control.
Okay. So this show is brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Duraplus, where Duraplus goes, water flows. Having mosquito spray and coil, pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects. And Napa Foods, it's tasty. DBS Industries and Robert & Sons Limited, Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care services provider.
Our front is solid, the caucus is solid. Obviously, in a group, you have all these group dynamics, challenges come. And I always tell people that, if we run a caucus and there are no challenges, then we are not making progress.
Will the NDC survive the opposition within the opposition? Is it towards an implosion? We'll be right.